The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Glory to you, O Lord. When Jesus heard of the death of John the Baptist, he withdrew in a boat to a deserted place by himself. The crowds heard of this and followed him on foot from their towns. When he disembarked and saw the vast crowd, his heart was moved with pity for them, and he cured the sick. When it was evening, the disciples approached him and said, "This is a deserted place, and it is already late. Dismiss the crowds so that they can go to the villages and buy food for themselves." Jesus said to them, "There is no need for them to go away. Give them some food yourselves." But they said to him, 5 loaves and 2 fish are all we have here." Then he said, "Bring them here to me." And he ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he said the blessing, broke the loaves, gave them to the disciples, who in turn gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and they picked up the fragments left over, 12 wicker baskets full. Those who ate were about 5,000 men, not counting women and children. The Gospel of the Lord. Today is the memorial of St. John Vianney, who died in the year 1859. He was born in 1786, so he had a reasonably long life, 74, 75 years. And if I recall correctly, he was something like perhaps Blessed Solanus Casey. He had difficulty with school, and I think he was a simplex priest. He could not preach, as I recall. But he either loved or really had a passionate call for hearing confessions. He's well known as the Cure of Ars, a small village, and rather wayward in the ways of the gospel. In the summer, he would spend 16 hours in the confessional and 11 in the winter. Not because he liked sitting there, but because there were such long lines. Because he was a very tender and compassionate spiritual counselor. And again, as I recall, he would boil a whole sack of potatoes and hang them on the back of his door, and after he would sit for so long hearing confessions, he'd eat a few potatoes and probably go to bed. It's a different age and different time than our own. Certainly for John Vianney, his mortification and prayer, and not unlike the work of Moses, he really gave his heart, not only to Christ, but to the people whom God gave him to love. As is quite obvious, I'm sure you know, that he is the patron not only of priests, but parish priests in particular. So we pray not only through the intercession of John Vianney today. I certainly invite and encourage you to pray for your parish priests. Not just yours, but all parish priests. It's a changing time, as you know, and many priests are stressed. Not many priests are moving because they know if they move, their parish may not get another priest. I read and I'm aware that more priests are seeking therapy and counseling because of the stress they bear, not because they don't love the work they do, but because there's little money, fewer people, smaller parishes, and change. That's not a complaint. It's an invitation, isn't it? That leads us to the gospel, it's not the gospel, but the first reading, quite importantly. I presume you can relate with Moses, right? We all have stress in our lives, And there's nothing like a lack of food that's going to accentuate the weight of the stress that we have, especially if you have kids to feed. Now, you may say, well, he was just so depressed. Well, yeah, he probably was. Wouldn't you have been? No, I don't know about you, but when I'm hungry, just about any food tastes good, right? Really? Well, okay, maybe just me. Well, okay, especially if it's a Snickers bar. Now we're getting kind of silly, right? Advertising. We reflected on that yesterday. But if it was me, and they had this coriander seed, the flakes, the manna, that they could grind and mill and boil, and it tasted like bread with oil. Now, if you're hungry, doesn't that sound appetizing? For 40 years? Not so much. Some of these stories conflict. Because didn't we read last week that God gave the people this manna, obvious, a Eucharistic correlation there, but he also gave them the quail. And at that time, that reading implied that that manna and that quail was with them the whole time. Well, the quail must have gone on strike, because apparently they're not there anymore. But what's really the point? It would seem that Moses is really complaining to God. But if it's a complaint, and it is, it's also a prayer. It's a pleading. And we would be remiss if we ourselves, in our trials sometimes, do not or have not prayed in the same way. You know the difference between just complaining. We're all kind of weary of that, right? And I remember some years ago, the person has since died, but it was a person in the prayer group at St. Lucy's some years ago. Complaining is like bad breath to God, don't you think? But notice what Moses says. Are these my people? Did I create them? Are you so unhappy with my work and my labor on your behalf that you should treat me so poorly? I can't manage all this. You call me to take them to my bosom. He's loving them as a pastor. He's not like, oh my God, these people won't stop following me around. He loves them. He cares for them. And he feels empathy and pity because of their hunger, because he had to be hungry too, right? He wasn't sneaking food on the side, I don't think. So it's really a prayer. And maybe that's the invitation for us. Now, you know, again, that there's things only God can do. And unfortunately, there's a lot of things that we think only we can do. But I've learned, took a long time to learn this, it always goes better for me when I do what I can do and I allow God to help me. If I ask God to help and then I allow and accept the help that I perceive him offering, things go a lot better. I've said it many times because I feel and believe it's true. A lot more happens than what I do. I try to do my part. Pray as it's up to me, as if it's up to God. Work as if it's up to me. But things really do go better when I can align myself in a vulnerability of asking for the Lord's help, but at the same time, he and I working together. Don't you realize that? You see? It's different. The gospel doesn't seem to have a correlation. Again, we're very familiar with this story. But maybe it is a correlation. Jesus doesn't do this alone. He's teaching the disciples how to do it. Now, where do you suppose they got the 5 loaves and the 2 fish? Had to be their own lunch. He says, well, bring that, they hadn't solicited the crowd as yet. Details not here. So, this is really going to be our food, So they bring it. And we know the rest of the story. But you see, they work together. Well, Lord, yeah, well, we got the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, but you know what, like, we're leaving that on the side, because, like, when they leave, well, then we're going to eat that, so, like, we're not really counting that. But they surrendered it. And so that they, with the Lord, bore great in abundance. Now, the interesting piece, I suppose, is why is the preceding verse attached to this story of the feeding of the 5,000? Jesus heard of the death of John the Baptist and withdrew in a boat to a deserted place. He needed some rest. And he wanted to pray and grieve and have some time to ponder the death of his cousin and the manner of his death. And after the feeding of this 5,000, he sent the disciples away. He sent the crowd and the disciples away, and he went into the mountain and he prayed. He got his prayer time. Probably slept the whole time, but God prays best when we get out of the way and sleep. Again, Jesus knows his dependence on the Father. I can do nothing on my own. I only do what I see my Father doing, and I only say what I hear my Father saying to me. It's a good message. As we honor John Vianney today, ponder that. So when you're having a really bad day and nothing works, remember you're not alone, and you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to figure it out alone. You need God, and you know what? God needs you. You're God's hands, God's mouth, God's feet. You're God's heart for the world. I try to do the best that I can as a priest and pastor to know and love and serve those given to my care. Hello. And for those who happen to walk in the door. Some days easier than others. Most days best when I work with God and he hears my prayer and works with me. Try it.